Try it. Jason's knife gleamed under the humming lights of room 108. Desks scraped, phones shook, and fear pressed against every wall. Yet Linda Tran did not move. She was her father's daughter, a soldier once herself, and her calm eyes met the blade as if it were nothing new. That stillness was not weakness. It was a trigger. Every drill from her childhood yard, every mission survived in deserts and firestorms, lived in her silence. Jason's lunge would not just be defiance. It would ignite the collapse of a powerful shield built on arrogance and lies. Because this isn't only one classroom, it is every place where silence is mistaken for surrender. And today, silence is about to strike back. Denver lay under a blanket of snow, rooftops and sidewalks carved into silence. In a small apartment, warmth fought against the winter. The radiator rattled, frost lined the windows, and in that dim light stood Linda Tran. 38, tall and poised, her long dark hair loose across her shoulders. Her high cheekbones and steady gaze revealed years of discipline, a soldier's daughter and once a soldier herself. Even at rest, her body carried the sharpness of parade ground training. On the couch sat her children. Emily, 10, with chestnut hair and wide brown eyes, slender and thoughtful beyond her years. She devoured books, asked questions that made adults hesitate, and protected her brother fiercely. Daniel, 7, smaller and pale, sandy hair tumbling over his forehead, clung to her side. Shy but curious, his small hands stroked the fur of their German shepherd. Ranger. Ranger, 4 years old, sable-coated and sharp-eyed, rarely relaxed. His ears flicked at every sound, his body ready. Guardian not only of the children, but of the fragile peace inside the home. Linda's thoughts drifted back to her father, Sergeant Tran, who had trained her with the unyielding gaze of a man scarred by war. Stand again, don't cry. A soldier falls 100 times, but rises 101. She remembered herself as a child in snow, fists raw from practice, pushed back to her feet by pride more than strength. That discipline carried her into the army, into deserts and ruined streets where gunfire echoed. She had survived comrades lost, storms of sand and steel. The military sharpened her, but motherhood redefined her. After her husband's death, she left the uniform behind to raise her children, turning her discipline to teaching life skills at Roosevelt Middle. Her mission now was not war. It was preparing children for life. The next morning, room 108 filled with restless energy, walls lined with posters about empathy and discipline. Linda's navy suit and calm authority stilled the noise. Students shuffled into place, some eager, others hardened by adolescence. Then Jason Miller arrived late. Broad-shouldered, blonde-haired, with mocking blue eyes. He moved with the arrogance of privilege. Son of Deputy Secretary Richard Miller, shielded by a name that bent rules. He dropped into a desk without apology, sneering as he pulled out his phone. Whispers rippled. Linda's gaze stayed firm, her soldier's instinct already noting his tension, the way his hand lingered on the zipper of his backpack. A flicker of steel flashed inside. Her breath slowed. The blade caught the light. And then, the blade gleamed beneath the fluorescent lights of room 108. For a moment, silence gripped the class. Then whispers rose. Chairs scraped. Fear swelled. Jason Miller smirked as he drew the curved hunting knife from his backpack, gripping it with the arrogance of someone who had never known consequence. Tall, broad for his age, with sharp blonde hair and mocking blue eyes, Jason held the weapon with reckless confidence. Gasps spread. Phones lifted. Maya Lopez, a quiet 13-year-old with long black hair, whispered, "Oh my God," as her friend Selena clutched her arm. Panic crackled through the room. At the front, Linda Tran stood steady, navy suit neat, eyes fixed on the blade. Fear was no stranger. Her father had taught her to measure, to act. Jason growled, "Say it again," stepping forward. Students screamed, but Linda's silence weighed heavier than their panic. Then Jason lunged. Linda moved instantly, pivoting, snapping her hand down on his wrist, pinching nerves until the blade clattered to the floor. Gasps erupted. In one fluid motion, she twisted his arm, forced him down, her stance rooted, her gaze calm. Jason cried out, pain twisting his face as phones captured every second. Some students covered their mouths in shock. Others, long bullied by Jason, stared in awe. Maya whispered into her phone camera. She stopped him. Jason's knees hit the floor, his humiliation louder than his screams. Linda pushed him away, voice even. "Sit down, Jason." The words cut deeper than any hold. His face reddened, eyes brimming with furious tears. Clutching his wrist, he staggered up, spitting, "You'll regret this," before storming out. Desks rattled as he shoved past, sneakers pounding toward the door. Linda did not chase him. She calmly picked up the knife with a tissue, placed it on her desk, and turned back to the class. Her voice remained steady. "Take out your notebooks. Today's lesson isn't over." At first, no one moved. Then papers shuffled, tentative but growing steadier. Phones stayed raised, recording not just the knife, but her calm. By lunch, whispers filled the cafeteria. By night, the video spread across the district. Some hailed Linda a hero, others accused her of going too far. But the footage spoke clearly. The untouchable bully had been stopped, and Jason Miller fled, humiliation and vengeance burning in his eyes. Jason Miller slammed the oak door of his family's mansion, the echo rattling through marble halls lined with chandeliers and portraits. His wrist throbbed where Linda Tran had twisted it, pride burning hotter than pain. From the far end came Richard Miller, his father. Early 50s, tall, broad-shouldered, silver streaking his blonde hair. His clean-shaven face was cut with deep lines of authority, blue eyes piercing with command. Deputy Secretary of the Interior, Richard carried power like armor and wielded it ruthlessly. Jason's mother was long gone. Richard raised his son as both parent and general, lavishing wealth yet demanding strength. Jason was his legacy, not a boy with flaws. "Explain," Richard's voice boomed. Jason shifted, bravado slipping. "She humiliated me. That teacher, Tran, twisted my arm in front of everyone. It's all over the internet." Richard's jaw tightened. To him, it wasn't just Jason's shame, but the erosion of the Miller name. Jason pushed on. "They're calling me weak." His eyes flickered with fear. Richard's reply was sharp. "And you let her do this?" Jason muttered, "She's trained. I didn't stand a chance." Richard turned to the window, the snowy estate reflecting his fury. "Linda Tran, a soldier turned teacher. She thinks she's untouchable. She is wrong." In the corner stood David Carter, Richard's senior assistant. Early 40s, lean, hair peppered at the temples, neat beard, gray suit. Once loyal, years of covering scandals and Jason's crimes had corroded his belief. A widower raising a daughter, David felt the hypocrisy cutting deeper each day. Richard snapped, "Draft a letter. Demand Tran's termination. Cite violence. Remind them who funds their board." David hesitated, voice low. "Sir, the recordings show Jason initiated—" "Enough!" Richard roared. "Perception is reality. She humiliated my blood. That cannot stand." Jason smirked faintly, pride soothed by his father's wrath. David typed, though guilt twisted in him. He thought of his daughter, trusting teachers like lifelines, and of Tran's calm defiance. That night, Richard met allies in his study, whiskey glasses clinking. She will not only lose her job, she will be erased. If the district resists, press harder, and if she fights, accidents happen in winter. The men nodded, ambition outweighing fear. David sat silent, ice melting in his glass, his chest heavy. His daughter's sleeping face haunted him. Was he becoming the man who would destroy truth to serve power? As Jason left, Richard gripped his shoulder. "You are a miller. No one humiliates us without consequence." Jason grinned, though Linda's calm eyes lingered in memory. And David, in the shadows, knew a choice was coming, between loyalty to power and loyalty to conscience. Denver's streets lay buried in white, silence broken only by tires crunching over ice and the dim hum of amber street lamps. Past 9 o'clock, Linda Tran gripped the wheel of her battered dark blue Honda Accord. Scratched doors, a rattling heater, but dependable. Tonight, she prayed it would hold. In the back seat, Emily sat tall, chestnut hair spilling from a gray beanie, brown eyes scanning the shadows. She held Daniel close, small, pale, sandy-haired, who clutched Ranger's thick fur. The German shepherd sat rigid, sable coat bristling, a low growl vibrating in his chest. At first, Linda thought nothing of the black SUV behind them, but it stayed too long, mirroring every turn. Now, its headlights cut sharper through the storm. Her breath slowed, military instinct taking over. Control fear, control the wheel. Afghanistan convoys flashed in her mind, her grizzled instructor's voice. "Panic kills. Stay calm." "Mom, why is that car still there?" Emily's voice trembled. Linda's reply was steady. "Seatbelts. Hold Ranger." The SUV surged, bumping the Accord. Daniel cried out. Ranger barked wildly. Linda pressed the accelerator, the car fishtailing but regaining balance. She darted into side streets, houses glowing faintly with family warmth, none of it reaching her. Her focus narrowed. Survive. At a red light, the SUV slammed her bumper again. Glass rattled. Emily screamed. Linda swerved through the light, barely dodging another car. Soon, the road ran along a snowy embankment, guardrails and a frozen river below. The SUV tried to ram her sideways. Metal screeched, sparks flew, but Linda kept control. "Anticipate. Make them overcommit." She baited the SUV closer, then braked hard. It skidded past, nearly plunging into the river, but steadied. Relief was brief. Another SUV blocked the road ahead. Trapped. "Mom, what's happening?" Daniel whispered. Linda's voice stayed calm. "Hold on." The two SUVs boxed her in. Then, without warning, their headlights blinked twice. Engines roared, and they peeled away into the night, vanishing as suddenly as they appeared. Breathless, Linda pulled into a side street, forehead resting on the wheel. Emily asked, "Why did they stop? Who were they?" Linda stared into the mirror, instincts warning. Survival wasn't safety. Someone had chosen to spare her. Miles away, David Carter lowered his phone, guilt and relief warring on his face. "Abort," he had whispered. His daughter slept peacefully, never knowing her father had just betrayed power to save a stranger. And Linda, under falling snow, could only wonder, who saved us and why? Morning left Denver glazed in ice. Linda Tran crossed the school lot with boots crunching. The night's chase replayed in her mind. Headlights too close, Ranger's furious barking, Emily's trembling hands. She had survived, but the question burned. Why had the SUVs suddenly pulled back? Survival rarely came without a reason. Students greeted her with a mix of awe and whispers about the viral clip. Linda taught as usual, voice steady, posture disciplined, though every doorway drew her attention. After dismissal, when halls emptied, a man paused in her classroom doorway. David Carter filled the frame. Lean, early 40s, dark hair touched with gray, a tidy beard and a suit that had seen long office hours. His eyes carried something: fatigue, conflict, a man worn by secrets. "Miss Tran," he said quietly. Ranger lifted his head and let out a low warning growl. Linda's hand tightened on a stack of papers. "You're Richard's man," she said flatly. David raised his palms. "I didn't come to threaten. I came because last night I called them off. It was my call." She narrowed her eyes. "So it was Richard's doing." He nodded, jaw tight. He stepped in and placed a slim leather folder on her desk. Inside were documents: erased disciplinary records for Jason, bank trails leading to district officials, memos cloaked as security measures tied to orders. Linda scanned the pages with the economy of a soldier. Her stomach turned, but her face stayed calm. "You're giving me evidence," she said. "You could end him." David's voice broke a little as he answered. "I have a daughter, Lily, 9. After my wife died, I promised her a world with truth. Working for Richard cracked that promise. When I saw you stand calm while everyone else froze, I remembered what I want my daughter to see." Linda studied him. The precise suit, the tired lines, the tiny tremor in his fingers. Ranger padded forward, sniffed, then relaxed, a small sign of trust. But caution remained. "Why betray him?" she asked. "Why risk everything?" David's answer was simple and tired. "Because some lines can't be crossed." Footsteps sounded in the hall. David flinched. "He's beginning to suspect me," he whispered. "If Richard finds out," he cut off, voice hardening. "Be careful. He won't stop until you're gone." David left quickly. Linda sat, hand on the folder. She thought of her children safe at home and of Lily she'd never met. Responsibility settled on her shoulders like armor. That evening, in his mahogany office, Richard watched the reports with a predator's focus. David had been distant. Richard noticed. He steepled his fingers and murmured into the cold glass. "If Carter is wavering, then he's more dangerous than any enemy." The gymnasium of Roosevelt Middle buzzed like a courtroom. Tripods lined the back, red lights blinking as reporters scribbled. Folding chairs held parents, teachers, neighbors, every seat tense with whispers. At the center, Linda Tran sat in a pressed navy suit, hair neatly tied, her spine straight. Emily and Daniel stayed safe at home. Tonight was her fight alone. Opposite her, Richard Miller entered with polished arrogance. His tailored suit, silver-streaked blonde hair, and burning eyes radiated fury. Jason followed, wrist bandaged, hoodie framing his scowl as he played the victim. Principal Harris, sweating nervously, looked like he wished to vanish. Richard seized the microphone, his voice booming. He painted Linda as violent, his son as humiliated, his words dripping poison. Parents gasped, whispers spread. Jason lowered his eyes, feigning wounded innocence. Linda stayed silent, her calm composure a weapon sharper than Richard's words. When given the floor, Linda rose, her voice firm. "I did not retaliate. I neutralized a threat. Jason brought a knife, lunged at me. I used the minimum force to protect my students." Her gaze swept the parents. "I am not a danger. I am their shield." The room hushed, her words carrying weight. Richard erupted, slamming the table, branding her a soldier unfit for classrooms. But before the tide turned, Maya Lopez rose from the crowd. Trembling, clutching her phone, she declared, "I recorded everything." The lights dimmed as the footage played. Jason's knife gleaming, Linda's calm disarm, Jason sprawling on the floor. Gasps filled the gym, then applause thundered. Mark Bennett, a scarred veteran journalist, stood. That was restraint. She could have broken his arm. She didn't. That's discipline. Applause swelled. Harris looked relieved. Parents nodded, some wiping tears. The tide was hers. Richard froze, crimson with rage. He grabbed the mic, shouting, "This is a performance. You don't know who you're standing against?" His voice cracked, desperate. Linda met his glare, silent, unflinching. The cameras caught it all. Richard still had power. But tonight, he had lost the room. The storm that once rattled Denver faded, and the story of Roosevelt Middle spread far beyond Colorado. Clips of Linda Tran's calm defiance flooded screens, while David Carter's leaked documents lit a wildfire. Bribes, buried assaults, and threats unraveled Richard Miller's fortress. Courtrooms replaced offices. Richard, once untouchable, sat drained under harsh lights. Witnesses exposed years of cover-ups. Linda testified with steady truth. The verdict: years in federal prison. His warning, "You don't know who you're standing against," echoed bitterly as arrogance became his undoing. Jason, too, faced judgment. At 15, already hardened, he was sent to a youth rehabilitation facility. His sneer faltered as the doors closed, no longer shielded by his father's power. Back in Denver, life turned brighter. Roosevelt held an assembly honoring Linda. Parents applauded, students cheered, and Maya Lopez stood proud for exposing the truth. Linda accepted humbly, her soldier's posture unchanged, her gentle smile speaking volumes. At home, warmth grew. David visited often, no longer Richard's shadow, but a man freed. His daughter Lily played in the snow with Emily and Daniel, laughter ringing as rangers circled protectively. Together, they built crooked snowmen, a patchwork family bound by resilience. David's hardened features softened. When Linda asked why he risked everything, his answer was simple: because power without conscience destroys everything. And because I wanted my daughter to see people who stand up, no matter the cost. Linda smiled, faint but true. Winter carried on, the air sharp yet hopeful. In her classroom, Linda faced her students as sunlight poured through frosted windows, her words etched into young hearts. When we know how to stand for the truth, no power can make us afraid. Snow fell outside, laughter and rangers' bark echoing. What began in fear ended in something greater. Not just survival, but a new home built on family, truth, and courage. Snow still drifted outside Roosevelt, soft and endless. Yet warmth remained within. Linda Tran's story was never about power against power. It was about truth against silence, about courage that stands quietly but firmly. Some may call it luck, others skill, but for those who believe, it was something greater, a quiet miracle. God does not always part seas or split skies. Sometimes his hand appears in the smallest acts. A child brave enough to lift her phone, a man choosing conscience over power, a mother standing tall when fear presses hardest. Miracles live not far away, but in our classrooms, our streets, our daily choices to protect instead of harm. So let us remember, faith, courage, and love are the true shields. Share this story, leave your thoughts, subscribe, and may God's grace guide and bless your family in every step.